Hello. Um, I've heard that. Well, it's true that all matter has a signature. Um, for example, um, electronically. Um, yeah. So that would explain why some people are always fiddling with their phones around you. They're tapping into your electronic signature. Only they know how to do this because they're part of the satanic nation, I suppose. Or, what do you call it? An ummah, I suppose. Some globalist thing. Or even universalist thing. I don't know. Part of Satanism, anyway. So, I love you too, dog. So, part of something. Part of some satanic organisation. That has secret technology developed using public funds. That's where people think is it 16 or 17 trillion dollar hole in the American budget went. A lot of public funds were used to create technological superiority for the Satanists. I love you too, dog. Yeah, so one of the things they found apparently was that we all create our own electrical signature. Well, we do have electricity in us anyway, you know. Apparently, we've got like 3 volts of electricity or something. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think that's what the average adult has, 3 volts. I'm not sure. Something like that. And given that the electricity is in a different body, yes, it may come out with some kind of different signature. It may be expressed through a different transmitter kind of thing. The radio waves vary over the radios, and that's why they get to, they're transmitted differently, so they receive those different sounds. Or maybe people transmit differently. Yeah, maybe that's how telepathy works. Variation in transmission. So somehow they're always picking this up. So they're the ones fiddling with their phones, especially in places where others are likely to be, like coffee shops or train stations. What they're seeking is the energy that humans make, because they're alien crossbreeds, like it says in the Bible, descendants of fallen angels. They've been around long enough now to look human, but they're not. They're not human. But they look like it, and they've taken over, so they can just call you mad and put you in a mental institution if you say that they're not human. what we need to do is catch up technologically. We don't know what they're doing with their phones, but we know that they're after our transmissions. Maybe their transmissions, therefore, are different. If they want something from us, presumably they don't generate it themselves, or they wouldn't need us. They need to come after us. So therefore, we're looking for a difference in transmission. I think it may be the alpha wave. Years ago, I read that alpha waves these are the long, slow waves, not the most long and slow like you have in sleep. They're the long, slow waves that you get when you're awake, when you're calm, in a calm mood. Those long, slow waves are apparently what students use when they're studying. It's what you use when you're focused on something, both alert, like focused, like on studying, and relaxed at the same time, like when you're studying. Okay, because, I mean, most of the time you're relaxed when you're studying. I know sometimes you can be upset when you're studying, like when it's near an exam and you're all sort of het up and that. But, or you can be anyway, but most of the time when you're studying, you're just getting on with it and you're calm and focused. And then you're making long, slow, some of the waves you're making are long, slow waves called alpha waves. These waves may be the waves they're after. They may not have these themselves. I think they may be able to gather them in a kind of battery and then somehow feed them back into their own brains. I mean, it is projected that people could download information on chips in their brains in future and know encyclopedias of information and so on. Well, if that were the case, then maybe they'd be utilising alpha waves. But apparently it'd be digital, and digital isn't the same necessarily as analog. We're analog computers. We are, apparently. We're sort of we're not digital anyway. Not yet, thankfully. Anyway, I hope I never am. We're analog computers, and or our brains are anyway. And I'm not sure if it'd be quite the same to get something off a chip, for example. What I'm saying is that maybe their technology includes storing alpha waves, which they can't seem to generate from others, for themselves, and feeding it into their own minds. I mean, think about how alpha waves are generated. Animals don't generate them, only humans generate them. So already there's something special about the human. They may not generate them because apparently not everybody does generate alpha waves. Right? Years ago I read, I think the information has changed now because they seem to change things to hide things, okay? They decide what they do and don't want you to know. But I seem to remember reading 30 odd or so years ago, that not everybody generates these long, slow waves. A lot of people only generate the faster waves. So if they haven't been able to generate them yet, say using computers, it may be that there's something about them that can't be generated by a computer. They can't generate. I mean, I know you can generate electricity, electrical waves and things, and make like synthesized music and things like that. I know a computer can generate a wave. I think you can tell a computer what wave to make, and then tell it to make that sound. But they can't seem to generate the appropriate energy which would impart particular mental characteristics that they want to generate. It seems that the technology is presently still beyond them. I think it would involve human brains. And unless they were to build the equivalent of intelligent human brains that could make these long, slow alpha waves. Unless they could do that, they would not have access to this wave that they might be seeking from people. So they would have to generate, they would actually have to make the equivalent of a human brain in order to farm this energy. This may be why so many people are disappearing, you know. There's an enormous number of people disappearing around the world, even in the West too, every year. They don't all just wander off, otherwise they'd all be somewhere. And they're not. They go, that's what disappearing means, they actually disappear. Huge numbers, millions and millions every year around the world are disappearing, just literally disappearing. Maybe they're being used in some kind of farm to farm their brains of this energy, or of any energy, of this energy if they produce it. They could just see if they produced it, and if they didn't, possibly eat them, who knows. They do say that there are aliens on this planet, and some of them eat human beings. Not all aliens would be bad. I mean, only a third of the angels of heaven followed Satan. 2/3 did not, so not all aliens would be bad. But some would be, and they say those ones eat people. But, you know, you can find videos saying this on YouTube. But what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to get to is that if they want this alpha wave, maybe maybe we just need to learn to detect it as well. They seem to be using Wi-Fi when they're messing about with their phones, because well, they're sticking to particular places, aren't they? They're going to places where there are people close by. They don't seem able to sort of phone you up from the other side of the world and do it. They do seem to be close to people when they're doing these things. So I think they're using Wi-Fi. And so people must be giving off different Wi-Fi signals. Humans must. We must all have our own Wi-Fi signal. And they're tapping into it somehow. So what we've got to do is just develop technology that can differentiate between people's different signals. Find out what's different about them. Because some of them might not be generating. There may be a whole group of people that's not generating what others are generating. They might even be generating something extraordinary or missing something extraordinary. It may be that the people who are always fiddling with their phones around other people do not generate alpha waves. If it were found that they lack a particular part of the energetic spectrum, that the electricity they're giving off is not the same as everybody else's, then if it's missing various parts, so the electronic spectrum goes from, say, for example, A to Z. If they're missing M or N or P or K or something, or all those things, then that would put them in a particular group. You could maybe group people this way. Observe them and note what they do. One particular group may be always messing about with their phones. Another particular group may be much more relaxed and normal and just not so active, or not messing about in this fascinated, energetic way that these other people have, that are always messing about with their phones. So they're just more calmly texting someone or reading something off the internet or whatever, or watching a video. Some people's behaviour may be more typical of their group than it is of other groups. And we may be able to identify then who's who. If you're human and you know you're human, you might not, if you're an alien, you might claim to be human anyway. But I'm just speaking to the human beings right now, those who know they're human, even if they don't know who else is. Okay, we may find we belong to a particular group which gives off particular signals that put us in that group. Other people, we may find that other people don't share our signals, and they may behave quite differently to us if we observe them, especially over a long period, like not just a few days even, possibly at least I would say at least a year. And we might find there are real differences in these other people. They don't make their behaviour obvious, but we may be able to say that we have observed them at least 100 times, and preferably 200 or more. And we really do note that they are always on their phones around people. And if we spot them on their own, say walking down a long road on their own or something, they're not on their phones anymore. Their interest is, their activity takes place around people. If we can just say that, we can say we've observed them for a whole year, or at least say 200 instances, and in different locations, and we can say this is how they behave. And then we'll at least be able to say that groups of people do have different signatures that put them in particular groups, and that those groups do behave differently. And that would be a first step to saying that some people are much more technologically active around other groups than they are on their own or in groups of their own kind. Because we should observe people in different groups as well as in their own groups. We should also observe what groups form groups. We may find the people of a particular group are the only people in church, for example, or the only people in Freemasonic temples, or the only people who are police, or the only people who are solicitors or judges, or the only people who give money to beggars, or the only people who like animals, or things like that. We may be able to distinguish groups of people from each other. They do try and mix us up. You've heard of the term divide and conquer, where people are divided up continually and set against each other so that they can never unite and help themselves against the powerful. Well, I think they mix us up all over the place, really. They don't let us form any kind of groups, including work groups. They hire different people in the same circumstances so that everyone everywhere is in an unconnected social format. They'll have different groups of people working in different organisations, so they never get to naturally identify with each other because they're always mixed up. I think that will be found. Some people will then say, well, it's just natural then. People naturally mix, don't they? Not necessarily. People do actually prefer, for example, racially, they prefer their own kind. Men generally prefer football and go to football matches, and so on. People do naturally segregate in various ways. They don't all mix together. So why are they all mixed together in working groups? It's an interesting question if you think about it, It's actually a very interesting question. It's almost like they're deliberately mixed up, which is a major part of their life, the most active part of their life, and the influential part of their life, their work, that feeds them and houses them, that pays them and feeds and houses them. is where they're all mixed up together. And luckily they have enough freedom to be able to make some choices outside of that. But they don't have a lot of time to necessarily make the choices they'd make if they had more time. Basically, in a more free society, things might be different. Society is as free as it can be anyway in a capitalist society, and it's already very controlled there. We may find that employers belong to a particular group, or overwhelmingly do. You know how competitors drive each other out of business? A supermarket will lower prices in an area until it destroys all the local competition, and then there's only the supermarket left. You've heard of that? Those people are destroying the independence of people and causing them to become unemployed or employees. So who are those people? Are they a particular group? They may be. The ones who are gaining more and more control over us. We need to find out why we have any kind of access to them at all, because even managers of supermarkets now are apparently being harder and harder to contact. I read or heard somewhere fairly recently in the last few months that if people want to question the managers of big supermarkets, for example, they can't get hold of them anymore. So more and more, they're hiving off as well. So whoever's controlling us is becoming harder and harder to get hold of. And we need to study them while there are any around. If we go into their villages to study them, where they may have gone to be away from us, we'll probably get called complaints from them that we're harassing them. And that might happen, because if you study people without their consent, that could be called harassment. We would need to operate really in areas like where they mess about with their phones a lot, like train stations and things like that, very public places, and maybe do one-off measurements of people, because if we do anything in a focused way on anyone, it could be called harassment. So one-off measurements might be what we'll have to do, but that's okay. 200 of those per group would be, that'd be a small scientific sample. Even say 50 would be a small scientific sample. But a couple of hundred per group at least would be, desirable. And I don't know, it's quite fascinating to think of, really. To finally be able to identify various groups of people. And if they were found to behave differently, that would be really interesting. Rather scary too, and dangerous. It would put you in a position of danger. But because I think the police are all or largely, mostly, these people. I heard recently that every police officer in the United Kingdom is now a Freemason. Possibly they're all a particular group. They may not generate all the signals that everybody else, other groups can generate. They may have an identifiable group signature. I don't really know how to do this. Somebody who knows about electronics might be able to do it. Just measure the Wi-Fi, the electrical transmission coming off of human beings. There's a lot of background radiation now with all the mobile phone towers everywhere. But transmitters everywhere. But it's possible. Then it might still be possible. It might be easier out in the country. If there were any area that was less busy, it might be easier there. But people who use technology a lot won't necessarily be in those areas. They'll be in areas where there's a high density of people. Like cities. Cities are really the most convenient place to do this. City train stations or places like that. I'm going to have to try and do it myself, because I don't even know if anybody else is going to, really. Just find out how you would quantify or describe the electrical nature of a person, the electrical transmission someone's giving off, where they are in the spectrum, and record that and group it in a particular group. How you would determine the groups, because it may be a perfectly normal human thing to miss out D or E or something. The thing that mattered might be whether you were missing M or K or both of them, or M and K or K and L, It's difficult to know which group means somebody's human and which means they're definitely not, and which means they're half-breed, and which means they're harmful, and which means they're not. You just have to watch people's behaviour, I guess. Another thing to try and do would be to see if you can tap into someone's transmission. You can tap into other transmissions, can't you? Using Wi-Fi, you can tap into other people's computers. People hack people's computers by using their Wi-Fi or some local Wi-Fi and take people's computers over. Maybe you can use someone's electrical transmission to hack into them. Or maybe you can draw it off and record it. I don't know, you'd have to try and see what you could do. And that could be a criminal offence. But I think it's being done to people. And the only way you could prove it is if you had a volunteer. Because you'd need to make what you're doing public without getting done for assaulting people by messing with them electrically. You might have to try doing it on yourself without knowing what the effect would be. It could be to could mess with your head and stop you doing any further experiments for all you know. If you drew away the energy you were transmitting, you might draw away your current thoughts, because it's your thoughts that make particular electrical transmissions to some extent. If you ask somebody to think of a particular thing, they will transmit. Their brain will activate in a particular way, which will generate particular electrical signals. So if you were thinking of your experiment and you drew away your own thoughts, you'd lose all interest in it every time you did it and go off and do something else. So you'd never get anywhere. I don't know, it's a difficult one. And how would you record that thought and feed it back into yourself? Would you record it digitally? Would you record it in a battery that would generate the right wave later? It would give off alpha waves later. People who are not intelligent, who could steal alpha waves, could steal someone's academic future by drawing them away. To be honest with you, I think this has been done to me to some extent. Around exam time, I did a degree, and around exam time I found it harder to study, harder to concentrate, and harder to remember things. I think that's because some people around me were drawing off my waves for use themselves. I know that sounds, may sound mad, but some people will call it mad, but some of those people will just be brainwashed into thinking this kind of thing is stupid, will have been brainwashed into thinking this kind of thing is stupid. And other people will be the perpetrators of these crimes, who will call the idea of them stupid because they won't want them to be discovered, because they won't want to lose what they've gained by their dishonesty. This kind of field of research and stopping these abuses and dealing with these people, maybe permanently, could all begin just by determining that there are different groups of people energetically, different energetic groups of people, and that they behave differently according to which group they're in. So I'm going to try and do this. I'm going to try and detect people's energetic frequencies and group them. And then try and see if the different types of person behave differently. So if anybody else wants to do this, or can provide any kind of electrical information about how I'd do this, that'd be good, because I don't really know how to do it. I just think it's a really good idea, and it needs to be done. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.